Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Fair Dinkum podcast. Today we had our beloved brother and old friend Omar Haniffa on the podcast. Alhamdulillah. We got to speak about his organization called Archery Ascension, which is in the southeast of Melbourne. We got to touch on his community that he's trying to build around horsemanship, archery and the Sunnah sports. And it was just an amazing episode. Wallah, you guys are going to love it. We got to touch on why the Sunnah sports are important, how animal therapy and the use of animals on his land can bring change to mental health, how it teaches you character. I think you guys are going to enjoy the episode. Please check out Archery Ascension on Instagram and Facebook and enjoy the episode.
One child that we have is a 3-4-year-old boy. He's on the spectrum, and one of the problems that he had was stimming. I don't know if you know what stimming is. It's like when a child's like, they constantly have to move, and they might even like make a sound like that type of thing. Like he used to do that a lot. After maybe 6 to 8 weeks of horse riding, it stopped.
Oh.
Wow.
Right? So it's just like, you know, when the Prophet ﷺ says there's goodness upon the horses until the day of judgment, it's like we see that in the therapy program.
Yeah, no,
That's awesome.
we're going to ask you, bro. Tell us a little bit about, like you were saying. We'll come back to Archery Ascension later on and have a bit more of a formal thing. But you were saying that there are kids that come to Archery Ascension for therapy. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my background is in youth mental health. So like when we were at La Trobe, I was studying OT, occupational therapy. And then after I graduated from uni, I guess my whole professional career has been in youth mental health. So I worked across mental health rehab, drug and alcohol, trauma, psychosis.
Wow.
And I guess this sort of ties into Archery Ascension's story. But then what happened was I got a horse for myself and my family, and then I started seeing the benefit in that. And then you hear about therapy programs, equine therapy, hippotherapy, kids with trauma backgrounds or war veterans coming or that kind of thing. So then I started putting two and two together, and we're in the process of developing a proper model for it. But we've been bringing kids to the farm to do therapy with the animals, and from an occupational therapy point of view, a lot of work OTs do. So if there's any OTs listening, there's a lot of sensory work, sensory integration, sensory modulation, therapy through your senses and through activity and through being. And so doing that on the farm is really powerful, and you see a lot of changes really quickly with the kids. One child that we have is a 3-4-year-old boy. He's on the spectrum, and one of the problems that he had was stimming. I don't know if you know what stimming is. It's like when a child's they constantly have to move, and they might even make a sound that type of thing. He used to do that a lot. After maybe 6 to 8 weeks of horse riding, it stopped.
Oh.
Wow.
Right? So it's just you know, when the Prophet ﷺ says there's goodness upon the horses until the day of judgment, it's like we see that in the therapy program. There's another boy, he's maybe 15, 16 years old, or maybe 14, 15 years old, around that age. And he's just been coming to the farm, and he's also on the spectrum and has some mental health issues and that kind of thing. And then after maybe a year of that, his family, his psychologist, his relatives, and we've never seen him so happy. Right? So I guess so that's part of what we do.
Did you, because you said you've been in youth mental health for a couple years, and then you got a horse years ago. Was the intention ever that this might actually be a form of therapy, or was it just because you wanted to get into horse riding?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question, because I guess it comes down to the introduction that we had, right? When I asked you, why do we play with horses? Why do we even do archery, right? So for me, it was okay. The Prophet ﷺ said that there's goodness in this. And I grew up like you boys. I grew up going to uni, playing basketball, that kind of thing. And so I actually bought Sadiqa 1 week before my first daughter was born.
Wow.
Right? And it was
My friend, sorry, Sadiq is his horse.
Yeah. I'm a slave. I was
Right hand,
that's it. But I bought her off Gumtree. I knew nothing about horses. Yeah, nothing. I just I was all right, we've got to do it. And my intention was for us, if you look at the hadith, and we spoke about some of this when you boys were there, it was this was something the Prophet loved. and like Muslims were known to be riders and archers. And do you know what I mean? Like you read the biography of the scholars, they were archers, they were horsemen, the Prophet ﷺ himself, right? Like if you read some of the stories from the Battle of Uhud and those type of things, it's amazing. But like we're so removed from that, and for us it's exotic. Like even for me, there's like a sense of like this is exotic. Like like when you come, it's like, oh wow, right? But the reason why I did it before my daughter was born, it's like my kids now, they don't know life outside of that, right? And then that feeds into the long-term vision as well. Like imagine like, did anyone here go to public school?
Yeah.
Right, so imagine like public school, right? Like first year of class or whatever. It's like, hey, you know, introduce yourself. What do you do? What do you like? Hey, my name's Andrew. I like playing footy. I go for Carlton. Oh, why? Because I like sport. Hey, my name's Rachel. I play guitar. Oh, why do you play guitar? Oh, because I like music. Oh, my name's Sahel. Oh, I do archery. Oh, wow, why do you do archery? Because I'm Muslim. Do you know what I mean? My name's Ashraf. I train horses. Oh, why do you do that?
Interest.
Yeah.
100%.
And then it's like that's almost like a mic drop moment, because everyone's like, that's not. It's like, oh wow, you know what I mean? And then what that does to the identity of the Muslim youth, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's a lot of reasons. I forgot the original question, but
I wanted to, because you said you bought a horse the week before your first daughter was born. Did you have like a farm or big backyard? What, like, you know?
Where do you put it?
Yeah.
That's a good. So with horse ownership, there's something called adjustment, where you can pay someone that has land to like a rent, like you keep your horse there, and different places have different pricing. So some places will be like $50-$60 a month, some places will be like $400 or $500 a month, and it just depends on like the resources, the level of care, that kind of thing. For me, there was like an adjustment place near my house where you could keep horses, and it was just an open field, like there's no riding place, not like it's just a field, and I kept them there. And then the family that like where we're renting Archery Ascension now, before, like back then, he was just like, why don't you just keep your animals at my place, and then, you know, they keep the grass short, I don't get in trouble with the council, and you have like free land to use. So then I moved there, and then like as my kids were growing up, like we had the horse, then we had milking goats, and like they were sort of growing up like that. And then lockdown hit, and then when lockdown hit, we had this conversation around starting the club and doing something for the community using that land. So it's not just, so it's like,
you use lockdown for good luck and not like the rest of us.
I'm sure everyone is locked down for good,
But
man.
even from, like, what we saw yesterday going, you would expect that's been there for years. Like, I wouldn't say it started at
like
lockdown. Like the community, the amount of people there, the amount of horses, camels, you know, and just animals all around. Like, mashallah.
There's a lot of animals, mashallah. Like, honestly, like we can see from what you've done, like there's actually a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can see it in the groundwork of the community. You see all the people that come in and come around, and even the types of people that come in is so diverse. Subhanallah. Like we've seen even like, were they non-Muslims?
Yeah, there are people that were Muslim. There's moms and kids and old people, young people. But that's what we want in a community, true. And like from my point of view, like I wasn't necessarily doing much per se. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like it's the activity, and the animal and the place that like brings that barakah, that makes it possible, right? And it's the idea of our jobs is to be a shepherd. Do you know what I mean? And we spoke a little bit, and we can talk about that, but like we spoke a bit about that.
I would want you to develop on 100%.
I think it would be good if people understand a bit more about your story, because obviously you said, how long ago did you buy Sadaqah? Like your first horse? Just
it would be 2018. Okay. 2018, yeah.
Obviously that's the horsemanship side of thing. Were you before that into archery? Is that?
Oh man.
Because then it's like archery, then horsemanship, and then the whole thing came about.
Okay, let's go. Let's rewind. Yeah. So archery was 2012. Yeah. Oh. 2012, 2011. So back in the YMA days, that's when I really started getting into the hunting and the outdoors and that kind of thing. But I had it was very, very interesting. I was in uni. I was studying OT, and I was playing a lot of basketball. And I had my first job, Domino's Pizza delivery in Hampton Park. And I really liked my job. I was getting paid like $11 an hour. But then, but the thing was like working and doing all those things. And I had like this moment where I was like, am I getting money just by making people fat, eating pizza? You know what I mean? And there was like, that was in the back of my mind. And then in my uni break, I went to Yemen for 6 weeks. I did like an Islamic program, there's a dawrah for 6 weeks, and I came back and I was watching a lecture on YouTube. It was a 2-minute lecture on archery and the Sunnah of archery. And I went and I bought a bow and I didn't look back. But what shifted in me was two things that I realized as a uni student, or two reflections I've had that stayed with me. The first one is around impact, yeah, and existence. So like the reality of the situation is that all of us, our existence and our non-existence is impacting the world around us. Does that make sense?
100%.
So it's like if somebody walks into this room right now, he doesn't have to say anything, but his presence will affect all of us. So we're like, who is that? Right? Likewise, if one of us just disappeared from this room, like your absence is going to affect all of us. Like you don't have to, right? So you like, if someone's going through something, like suicide's not always the answer, because it's like you removing yourself is also going to impact, and like your existence is also impacting, right? So it was like, how can my existence and non-existence have a positive impact on the world around us? Do you know what I mean? That was one question that was on my mind. And the second thing was like, if you knew me back then, you'd know I was a massive basketball fan. Yeah, like I loved it. Yeah, like I always had like two basketballs in my car. I had like shoes, boots, ready, everything.
MJ.
Huh? Or T-Mac and Kobe. What's it called?
That's gonna take like an hour conversation.
That's a whole new podcast.
Yeah.
And then Hakeem Olajuwon, because he got Finals MVP in Ramadan.
Oh wow!
Right, so that's a GOAT levels. True,
Wow.
people don't talk about that. But see, I knew, I know the game, and I loved it a lot. But what happens is, right, if like Mount Rushmore, yeah, like who's on the Mount Rushmore of basketball, right? Like if you hit the top, like if you get to GOAT status basketball, whose company do you find yourself in, right? LeBron, Kobe, MJ, whoever, yeah. Mount Rushmore of footy, who do you find yourself with? Mount Rush, yeah.
Tablet.
Yeah.
That's Martin, yeah.
Martin,
Yeah.
Those blokes.
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore of soccer.
Ronaldo, Messi.
Ronaldo,
Yeah. Mount Rushmore of tennis.
Federer,
Nadal.
Nadal, Djokovic.
Yeah. Mount Rushmore of archery.
Omar Haniffa.
No.
Arman Haq 100%.
No, but really,
Oh,
maybe Saad ibn Abi
Rasul
Waqqas.
sallallahu mate.
Yeah.
the Rasul
Sahaba.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
Yeah.
right?
Catch that. I'm
Ismail.
Been companions.
Yeah, the Sahaba as well, right? The scholars, the greatest archers, like were our ulama, were the prophets. Like Prophet Ismail alayhi salam was known to leave Makkah to go hunting and bring food for the people of Makkah, right? So you find just like that company, horse, like amongst horse riding, whose company do you find yourself in when you reach the higher standards, right? And then you find the company of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You find the company of the Umar radiallahu anhu. And do you know what I mean?
100%.
So it's like, if I'm going to like dedicate my life to a craft, because any like we can talk about sport and activity and the mental, physical, emotional benefits that come from engaging in sport, right? But then which sport and why? Do you know what I mean? And if I'm going to dedicate myself to a craft, whose company do you want to find yourself in once you reach that destination?
But
Right?
how did you have you always been this kind of like introspective? Like did you always throughout life think about like the end goal, what was going to happen, or did you just recently develop it?
Yes, I feel like I had good teachers. Do you know what I mean? And good parents. So like like with the YMA system and growing up under Ustad Mahmoud and camps and those type of things as a young person really gave us that opportunity, like to be able to reflect. Do you know?
Very
Yeah.
introspective, like that's something you don't come across quite often, mashallah. Like not me gassing you up or anything like that.
Yeah.
But like for somebody to go, hang on, I am playing basketball, and it doesn't just end at playing a sport and throwing a ball in the hoop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It goes further than that. It's like when I perfect this art, what are the people that I'm around? And it's like something that I've never thought about myself. And subhanAllah, I'm learning this now, and I'm just like, wow, did I just waste a lot of time for no reason? Do you know what I mean?
Oh man.
Honestly, like I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, bro, like honestly, like if you think about it, like the end goal of archery, like you were saying, it has an actual akhirah benefit as well.
Yeah.
Beyond this realm, the physical realm. And
Subhanallah.
yeah, it's just like it points me at that question, like is it something that is that introspection something that was gained? Because if that's possible, then sign me up.
Like 100%, right? Because I guess like it has to be gained, because I guess like say with like in the Quran, like what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us to do? Like when he talks about like knowledge, it's all about reflection. There's a dhikr and fikr, like you remember and you reflect. And I guess when I think about that, it's almost like all the knowledge you need is already placed within you. Do you know what I mean? And so if you just like stop and settle and look, right, the answers are already there, right? Like when I was a young person, and well, I'm still young, but like when I was a teenager, and I was going through just like what we go through, identity crisis or whatever as a teenager. There was a time like Ustad Mahmoud, he used to he sends out text messages like to everyone, but like the way he sends it, it's like you feel like he sent it to you. But it was at that time, like it was a particularly dark moment for me, and he sent through a poem, and it was a poem by Rumi, and it said, like one of the lines from the poem is, why are you going about with a bucket when within you is a fountain? Be ashamed to seek like water from the little creeks when within you is a fountain of milk and honey that the world needs to experience, right? And then Rumi in his next line has an ayah from the Quran. We created the expansion within you. Do you not reflect? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like this is what it means to be human beings, right? And I think for us, it's just the more we step into our essence, it's like just the more amazing it is.
100%.
Right?
You can tell, even like in moments where you feel like your back's against the wall, you start to unravel things you've never thought that you had within you, you know?
That's right.
And it's true, man. Like when you think about it, a lot of what we perceive as impossible or things that we didn't know was capable, like a lot of it is actually like within us.
No, exactly.
You're right, man.
Exactly.
And even the knowledge side of it, just because I know, I see a lot like in the fitness world and stuff like that. A lot of people with weight loss or with trying to take care of their health, they're looking at every new hack, every new goal. It's like, okay, if you do this exercise twice a week, you get these results. But you already have the knowledge of what it is to get the body
That's
and the
right.
physical health. It's like maybe
Eat right and exercise. That's
Yeah.
it. It's all it is.
Over a
we're
long
always
period of
looking.
time.
It's like we have the knowledge, like you said, but we're always looking externally.
Looking
But internally, all the knowledge is there that you need.
100%.
Yeah.
Subhanallah. That's right. And then our job then is to be in the right environments and surround ourselves with the right people to really bring that out, right?
Sure.
And that's like, so I guess with Archery Ascension, we talked about that, right? So like, what's the purpose? To change the world, right? Do you remember this? What's the I don't know if I talked to you, but it's like, what's the purpose of the club that we started? We said it's to change the world. How are we going to change the world? By transforming lives, right? How do we transform lives? By connecting them to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But why does that work? Because what was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent to do?
Perfect character.
To perfect character. So everything the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does or said is in the betterment of the human being. So by you engaging in that, then you're making yourself a better person. So if we then have a critical mass of people that are making themselves better people, then we've changed the world,
100%.
Yeah.
right?
And change starts by one person. One person by one person.
Yeah,
100%.
right?
And it starts with the self too.
Exactly.
So when I'm saying this, what effect does horse riding and archery do to, like, what does it have on you yourself? You know what I mean? You can take time to think. We can edit it out. Or we can play some funny background music like
Yeah.
Jeopardy or something.
Fair enough.
Or cut the video of us with the horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's interesting, like with motorsports, you can find like benefits with like in terms of personal development.
Yeah.
But what I've realized, and even with Ashraf, I was speaking to him earlier today, is that the Sunnah sports are all individual sports. So like obviously there's hikmah behind that. And I want to know like your journey in like actually doing the sports and like developing your
Yeah.
skills over time within the sports.
Do you know what's interesting on that? Yeah, like it is and it isn't. But archery, and you would have felt this, or sometimes if you watch even how the Ottomans trained, right? It's like salat. It's like salat is much more powerful when we do it together, right? But when we're all standing row to row, shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe, we're praying together, but we all have an individual relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So archery as a sunnah sport, it's like that. It's like you all have your individual relationship with the target, but you're doing it together, right? And you'll see like sometimes with the advanced archers, it's like they're shooting in sync, right? Or you would have seen even with the horses, like they move in sync with you, like them, like you know, like when they walk around you and stuff, like they're matching your steps, they're matching your energy, and then like in Morocco they have this thing where once a year they do this it's not a race, but it's more of like an exhibition where they get all their stallions, like 100 stallions, 100 horsemen, 100 guns, and they run and then they shoot into the air like as part of a celebration, and you see like the horses are moving in sync. So it's like it is and it isn't. Do you know what I mean?
I think even when you just said that, I was thinking, yeah, because individual sports, you don't learn teamwork. And it's all about like communication with the other person. And then it's like yesterday, what we learned about horsemanship is it's all about you communicating with the horse.
Consciously.
Yeah. Like internally and externally. And there's so many different elements to it. There is teamwork or that kind of thing, like your connection with the horse.
Still developing those skills. Yeah.
It comes like, again, I guess it comes down to the impact question, right? Like, so if your purpose in archery is to hit the bullseye, you've missed the target completely, right? Because when it comes down to, like, if you're because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he said the area between the targets is a garden from the gardens of paradise, right? So one of the interpretations of that is that the process of you shooting your arrows, pulling them out, collecting them, walking back, shooting, right? That process, what it does to your mental state and to your character, right? Like forms an individual who's more likely to receive the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that it's like your way to paradise, right? So the purpose of archery then becomes about becoming a better human being, right? But if every human being is focused on how can I be a better human, how can I how can I be a better brother, a better father, better husband, better imam, right? Then it's like it's not really an individual thing, is it?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
But we need to refine the individual, like we need to draw out that in the individual first. So it's like there's a bit of a paradox there, right? But then with those sports as well, it's like we can make team games and we can make like archery, paintball, or right, or like they play horseball or like relay races or whatever it is, right? And then we can bring that in, inshallah.
Because you think about it as well, like even to go beyond it, like you were like, it was the journey in between, not the actual hitting the bullseye that matters. Kind of like innamal a'malu binniyat,
That's right.
Like the intention is more important than the action. It's
100%.
You know what I mean? That's trippy because like life in general, and everyone who gets there will tell you like the journey is more important than the destination. Ashraf lost that quote. I had to throw it.
It's about the process.
Yeah.
It's about
But
the
100%, the process is way more important than the thing. I think that's what you learn when you get older, man.
Yeah.
That's something that I've learned,
100%.
especially when I got older. Like the main thing wasn't me becoming a football player later on, or wanting to make the AFL and become the greatest. It was like, well, how did you build yourself as a human being in the process? How did you become more fit? How did you become more switched on when the chips were down? How did you react? What did the pressure do to you? You know, that builds your character as a human being in the future.
100%, right?
Sem told us about that as well, bro. Remember when Sem goes, it's not about me making the UFC and becoming champion. It's about who I become as a person after it. That stuff is gonna help me in my journey to becoming the human I want to become at the end, which is crazy because I never thought of it like that either. It's like when you punch someone, you don't punch them in the face. Well, it's bad, but
the Sunnah sports.
They teach you in boxing. You don't punch someone's face. You punch through them. You punch what's on the other side.
You kick through them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Sam's one of our mates is a professional MMA fighter.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I thought we would have known, man.
Mashallah.
So, yeah, mashallah. But yeah, that's something that we have to understand as human beings in general, bro.
Yeah.
Well, like, because the destination might be somewhere else that Allah wants you to go.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, like, for example, you say for boxing, your trainer is going to teach you that. And one thing we found out when we had a podcast and we started a couple of years ago, there wasn't anyone in the community that we could kind of go to and ask for advice. This podcast is a very new thing.
Yeah.
And there wasn't someone who was kind of like in their 20s doing something. It's like, okay, hey, what technology should we buy? What type of content should we make? What type of guest should we get on? And I feel like that might be the same for you because like archery and horsemanship, did you have like a mentor that kind of taught you a lot of this, or was it just a lot of YouTube videos, you know?
There's both. There's both. I think like there's definitely mentors out there. One particularly helped, like I guess YouTube wise, what was particularly inspirational was Sheikh Ibrahim from the UK or CFR. Mentor wise, particularly with Ottoman archery, was Ustad Ammi Karat from Maidan Archery in Sydney. But then there's also this idea of of the oneness in all things. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the skills. So for example, with archery and horses now, it's like it's a metaphor for life itself, right? Like the horses become the training ground for how you're going to be a father. Archery becomes a training ground of your mental state. Does that make sense, right? Hopefully when you play soccer and basketball, it's like the metaphor for teamwork, for corporate challenges, that type of thing. Does that make sense?
100%.
So I guess I think for me, like having that basketball background as well sort of helped in that, and then it was like, and then having the mental health background helped, and then when I came upon archery and the horses, it became almost like, have you heard of the Japanese concept of Ikigai? Yeah.
Loves the Ikigai, this guy.
Ikigai?
Yeah.
Hey, Ikigai, right? So this is like the blend of what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for, or I'd say like who you are, right? Passion, profession, and purpose, right? It blends, right? And I found it's just a perfect storm. It's a perfect recipe,
100%.
right? So like as a community, if we wanted to create something that's going to bring out like solidify the identity of our youth, give something positive back into the world, build interweave well-being into the fabric of society, like I can't think of a better way to do it, right? And my background, like my professional background's in OT. It's literally therapy through activity, right? Well-being through being and doing. So it's like it's all coming to one. Yeah,
Perfect storm, huh?
it's a perfect storm.
Can you tell us a bit about, like, because I remember yesterday you touched on, maybe I missed it when you guys were chatting, but how like horsemanship teaches you leadership. Because a lot of times for us in the community, we think like MSAs, Islamic Society, that's the only way we can get leadership experience. And then yesterday you were explaining how horsemanship, which is like for example, a lot of people have cats, a lot of people have animals in their house, and they're like, you know, what's the difference between taking care of a horse? So can you touch a little about how they can, maybe horsemanship can train you to be a better leader?
Ooh, let's look at that, but also like just preface, like if we look, what was the one job we knew all the prophets had?
Shepherds.
Yeah, to be shepherds, right? And that was I guess the school that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them through, right? And why did Allah do that? Right? Because so they learn how to be gentle with people and guide people and whatever, right? And so when it comes to our leadership model, so like we say horsemanship is the art of leadership, but for us we don't really look at it as leadership, because leadership, there's two paradigms you can really like approach leadership from. One's like governance, and one's this idea of being a shepherd or a ra'i, right? All of you are a ra'i. You're responsible for like your flock, your people, right? That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. So what's the difference between, I guess, a governor and a ra'i, or a leader and a shepherd, right? And I guess the paradigm that I like to look at it from is, if you think about like an architect versus a gardener, right? So the architect, like he'll have this image in his head, and like he'll control every detail of it, and he like really, like I guess, shape the structure to what's going on. And do you know what I mean? And when he steps up, I designed, I built that type of thing, right? For like from a shepherd or a gardener point of view, when the gardener wants a flower to blossom, what's his job? He has to plant the seed, cover it up, make sure the soil levels are good, water it, get it sunshine. But when the flower blossoms, can he step back and say, I made that, I created that? He can't. He can only step back and say, Subhanallah.
He only like contributed slightly to it.
But he worked so hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very interesting
right?
analogy.
Like he works so hard. Like your parents, like you know, some people try to be parent, like in their parenting style, it's more the architect. Oh, my son has to do this and right? And oftentimes that doesn't work, right? But when you have a parent that then can create like a nurturing environment for their child to grow and flourish into like their own essence, right? Like then we see, do you know what I mean? Like we see beauty in that, right? And so with the horses, it's the same. It's like if you try to like, I guess especially initially, if you try to like break in or like shape it, like yes, but like no, right? But if you approach it where it's like, we're going to build this creature up and we're going to have this synergetic relationship, it's so much more powerful. And the thing is, often people will not do that with each other, like you want, because to be able to do that for another creature, you've got to be able to deal with what's going on inside of yourself, right? You can't draw out and nurture the best in someone else if you can't do that within yourself, right? And often people won't do that. Like if I'm like, go see a therapist, like people are like, why would I see a therapist? I can deal with my problems. You know what I mean? Right? But you like being with the horse and trying to bring out the best in that, like you'd be more willing to put yourself in those situations where then you have to take your own self to another level. Does that make sense?
How does that work with, like, because obviously if you try to force the relationship, like sometimes like managers, we'll say use the managers, they come into a new business and they kind of just be strict and tell everyone what to do. Because obviously that like restrict, people don't want to kind of build a connection.
Yeah.
Horses, it seems like it's a much more patient journey. Like you said, like riding is the last bit. That's what you kind of explaining us to yesterday. Because all the boys came like, man, I want to ride a horse. And then we went there, we didn't even talk about riding a horse.
Yeah.
And we don't even know, like that seems like it's step 6.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's much more patient, long time to build that connection, you know?
Yeah, well, it takes the time it takes, right? And this comes to falling in love with the process, falling in love with the path, right? But coming back to that, it's like, what actually makes a good leader then? What makes a good shepherd? Like, what are the qualities we want in a shepherd or a leader? Like, what is that?
Oh, you're asking,
It felt like a rhetorical question, didn't it?
It's like, probably like responsibility as well.
Huh?
Because with anything, it's like if the sheep, for example, don't eat, don't get their water, whatever it is, don't get taken care of, it's on you.
That's
you can't
right.
blame anyone else.
That's right.
You know?
They can maintain safety, right? And they can be responsible.
Communication.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. There's communication, there's a sense of safety. There's a sense, I guess, with safety, direction, like that responsibility, you're taking them somewhere, right? And there's like almost like one more.
Taking care of sheep.
Ownership.
No, if you, like let's say you've got a teacher or your parent, and like, I guess they're good communicators. Say, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, or you have to finish your homework before you go to bed, or whatever. Responsible, puts a roof over your head. What's the last but most important
love,
thing?
affection.
Beautiful connection, attune. And what is connection? It's attunement. The idea that you as a follower feel heard, listened to, and understood, right? And if you feel like you're like if you feel like the person who's looking after you, like hears you, sees you, and understands you, you're like, they almost don't need to train you to do anything. Do you know what I mean?
It just happens. It just happens.
It just happens because there's that love. It just happens from you, right? And so even like with our horsemanship program, we break it up into suhbah and tarbiyah, right? Because suhbah is the idea of companionship, building up that love and that connection. Tarbiyah is the training, right? And the bringing through. But even, and then you think about that like with youth, or even like with marriage, or with anything, right? Like the more time you spend investing in suhbah, investing in that companionship and building up that attunement, like you putting yourself in a situation where you really understand and get the person that you're with, the easier the tarbiyah is, right? And then what's very interesting about that is, what were the people on the Prophet called? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The companions, Sahaba. Right? Because the Prophet ﷺ invested in companionship with them. He did life with them, right? And often like clear example is alcohol, right? Like alcohol was halal for 19 years, right? Like something that now we say it's like the mother of all evils, or that, you know, like don't come to the mosque if you, like, it was halal for 19 years, right? But when the commandment came, what happened with alcohol?
The streets were full.
The streets were full because people just do you know what I mean? Right? But that came from a level of love and attunement, because like it was ride or die with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? That's how it was, right? And they understood, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ride or die with them, right? Because when the Quraysh came and said, you know, we'll give you the kingdoms and the women and whatnot, he's like, put like the moon in my right, the sun in my left. I'm not gonna give up unless I'm unless this mission is successful, or I die therein. Do you know what I mean? And again, we see the commitment to the process. Like, he didn't know if it was didn't know at that time if he was going to be successful or not, but it was like, this is the way.
He stuck with it,
Yeah.
What I find interesting is, like, with the whole thing about like understanding, like letting people be heard, a lot of people expect to receive it from others, but then they're never conscious about actually giving it.
That's right. Like
they're too busy like focusing on themselves.
Mm.
I think that needs to be really developed, especially like within youth. They're not as conscious to this.
Of listening to other people.
Yeah, as in like in order to receive it, you have to give it.
You have to be able to give it.
And most times, give it first.
Yeah. That when you were saying that, I guess I was doing it.
Yeah.
But when you're having a conversation with someone, like, what's generally happening when someone is talking and you're listening to them?
Talking about themselves.
No. Like, generally what's happening is you're just waiting for your turn to speak.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're not
Sure.
actively listening.
You're not actually listening to
Yeah.
them,
Oh,
right? It's like, so yeah, no, that's what came to mind when you were talking about that. Like, yeah, and like, what's interesting is the more willing you are to actively listen to someone, then generally speaking, the more willing they are to actually listen to you. Do you know what I mean? Because once they've felt like heard and seen and gotten, then all right, then they can settle, and then they can truly then open up to you, right? And you see that in youth work all the time, right? It's like you might come in as a youth worker, or you might sit with like a troubled kid, and you'd be like, "How's it going?" And he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm good." Yeah, what did you use? Not much, right? But that's because like the youth is thinking, this person doesn't really care how I feel. Like, why would I open up to them, right? And so that, like, being a good therapist is actually not showing, actually being able to, I actually am curious about your story and I want to hear what's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And when you meet someone like that, then the young person's much more likely to open up to them.
How do you used to do that? To show, like, because even in basic conversation, there's obviously therapy where the person might even be more closed off.
Mm.
But then even with your friends, like, sometimes you want to go to the next level.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you don't really want to hear my problems.
Mm.
So how would you know?
I learned that through the horses.
Okay.
Right? So watch this year. If like, so we talked about leadership being a communication, right? Like, communication being a good form of like a good attribute or a good quality of a leader or a shepherd, right? So like think about a husband and wife, yeah? And like, the husband says, "How are you?" and the wife says, "I'm fine."
We say that with our parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know the answer.
Well, what is it? Like, if she says, "I'm fine," is she fine?
No.
No. So then, like, where's the communication issue? That's a joke. But what's it called? But what's going on there?
No,
I don't know exactly.
Or it could even be the other way around. Like, if the mom's like, "Oh, how are you?" or "Yeah, it was a good day," but doesn't really talk about it. Like,
maybe they're not very comfortable, or maybe they're just not used to speaking to that person as often in detail about their
a
day.
lot of times they even want you to ask more.
right.
Show
That
more
happens
interest
a
in
lot,
that way. Yeah.
So the person that says, "I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm good," and doesn't expand upon what's actually going on, what they're actually saying is, like, I'm not sure that you're going to give me the attention, like, that's required to the level of what's actually going on for me, to actually tell you what's going on for me and feel seen, understood, and gotten in this moment.
I
Right?
just went deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be
Yeah.
conscious of
Makes
it.
sense.
That's right. You know what I mean? And then, so a lot of us, like, often, like, a lot of us, we don't have these quality people in our lives. Like, you're very lucky to have one, like, even if you're married, like, you're very lucky to have one person or two people that you can actually, like, talk to on that level. Like, a lot of us are like icebergs where, like, we show the world, like, what's above the iceberg, and below there's all this stuff going on, but we don't actually have the spaces where we can actually lower that. Do you know what I mean?
True.
And, like, social media generation has meant, like, we only see, like, the tip of the iceberg now.
Goodness.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like that. But when you can find people where you can, like, yeah, like, you can actually, or you can be the person that people can actually let go and lower that waterline, or actually tell you what's going on, it's like that's where true connection starts, right? And there's this idea of vulnerability that if I'm gonna, like, drop this and show you my heart, it's like I have to be able to feel comfortable to be vulnerable with you. But the cool thing there is that community, like, human beings, we don't connect upon our strengths. We connect upon our weaknesses. That we build community because of our limitations, right? So it's like, you're a lumberjack, I'm a blacksmith. We make an axe together, right? I don't know anything about wood, you don't know anything about steel. One of the most beautiful stories that I heard, there was a man, he's legally blind, and he was with a friend, and they get into a taxi, and the legally blind man sits in the front, friend's at the back, and he turns to the taxi driver and says, "Hey, how's it going?" And the taxi driver doesn't reply, or the Uber driver. And then after a while, the Uber driver turns around and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, were you talking to me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just said, how's it going?" He's like, "I'm really sorry, I'm actually, like, deaf in this ear," right? And the legally blind brother, he says, "Well, I'm actually blind." And then the Uber driver says, "Well, how about I be your eyes and you be my ears?"
Subhanallah.
Right?
Yeah.
what a moment of connection. And that's how community is built, right? Like husband and wife, it's like you're there to like cover each other's flaws and, you know, be garments, and you build. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be able to lower that. And how do we do that? You need to be able to sit in that, I guess, that zone of being uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? And when someone can see this person's riding with me, right? Like if you're like, hey, how's it going? I'm good. And just sit there. It's like, I'm not going to take that. Like, not that I'm not going to take that answer, but I'm willing to wait and show you that I'm actually going to give you the time and attention and seriousness that it requires for whatever you feel like is actually going on for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then so when I said I learnt that with the horses, so one of the things that happens with the horses is that, like, we were talking about how they're creatures of anxiety, right? So when a horse is in the wild, they're eating grass, they hear a sound. Oh, it's a lion. They look up, they stop eating, scan for danger, or they run or something. Then they look, and then saliva returns back to them. They start eating again, right? And until they hear another sound. And they look up, then they run. And then, like, they hold their breath, they run, settle down, like, they start eating again. One of the things that happens, particularly horses that are around a lot of humans and humans that aren't switched on, is that the horses start holding their breath. It's like they'll stop eating, but they won't ever reset back into that relaxed system, right? Wow. Or maybe even like the first time a horse is with you, it doesn't really know you, so it's sussing you out, because like to them, like from a biological point of view, we're actually enemies, because like we look like a threat, like we look like a predator, right? So they're like sussing you out, right? And you just got to sit and wait.
How long does it usually take to develop that relationship?
Bro, how long does a relationship take to develop, man?
Yeah, human relationships.
Do you know what I mean? But this is why it's like the perfect grounds to actually develop those skills, right? Like for me, I'd never say like we break in horses. It's more like we build them up. Do you know what I mean? Because it's thing. And so it's like, you know, if you ask me like with Sadiq, how long did it take to train her? Well, it took 4 years to get to this point, and it was a process. Do you know what I mean? And now we're at the end. We're not. What does the end look like? I don't know. You know what I mean? So yeah, so there's that there. But like you think about, like, for a lot of human beings now, we're in the same situation where it's like rat race. So it's like, you know, especially if you have a job you don't like, it's like to be a professional, you can't be all emotional and, oh, this is actually going on for me. Like, my dad's in hospital, my mom's sick, right? It's like you just have to get through the day, right? But then if your whole life is just you getting through the day and you never have that situation where you can let it out, actually open up to someone or with someone, then you become emotionally shut down, right? And like they say, if you can't experience like emotions are like a spectrum, yeah. Like to be able to experience like really high emotions, you have to be able to experience really low emotions, right? But if you're emotionally restricted, then like your spectrum of emotions also become emotionally restricted, right? So like it's not necessarily like, it is a good thing and it's not a good thing. But one of the things that's happened in the Muslim community, it's like, how are you? I'm good, alhamdulillah.
That's it.
Right?
It's the basic,
Yeah. And then alhamdulillah now becomes really an astaghfirullah, because you're using Allah's name to like emotionally restrict yourself. Right?
Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
Right? But if you can use like, it's like, you know, like, oh, this and this happened, and like, you know, like I got bogged and da-da-da, but alhamdulillah, like that's a completely different alhamdulillah.
You mean it.
Do you know what I mean? It's like we went through pain, we went through happiness, we went through frustration, we went through da-da-da, and alhamdulillah, like what an amazing thing that we could experience all of that, right? And one of the hadiths about, like, I guess, emotional regulation, the Prophet ﷺ said, is that the non-Muslim or the non-believer is in one state, is in one hal his whole life, and the believer goes through 40 states in a day.
Whoa.
Yeah, because he's present, he's in the moment, right? But if we're just like, alhamdulillah, and like we're like holding on the reins of, it's like, okay,
it's not healthy.
No, it's not healthy.
I think even because you touched on with the horse, and like there's times in your relationship you have to be a bit uncomfortable. It's just understanding that, and then it even goes to the start when you said you have to have time to actually reflect on the knowledge you have internally. It seems like a lot of time is spent like alone just with your thoughts. Same as like when you're with a horse, it's just you and a horse. But the horse isn't talking back to you. So when you're with your friends, you're chatting about life, you can kind of be a bit distracted. But when you're with a horse, like I used to think about when the companion used to be on a camel and they'd be on a journey for hours. What did they used to think about? You know,
Yeah.
us, we get bored in the aisle in the supermarket, we pull out our phone.
Subhanallah.
So it's like that kind of thing. And it seems like all of this reflection
yeah.
is only going to help you. But then you have to put yourself in those situations.
That's right.
Which is what horsemanship kind of does, being with the animals, being outdoors.
That's right. To put yourself, to experience amazing things, you got to put yourself in like amazing situations, right? But then this comes like there's a lot there. But one of the beautiful things, like even the Arabs, the Sahaba, what would like how would they raise their kids? They'd send them out to the desert,
First couple
Yeah.
of years, yeah.
right? And I feel that's exactly why, right? And it's in the desert that they learnt character and language and poetry and those kind of things, right? And then they came back. And you look at any indigenous native society will be an intensely spiritual society, right? Whether it's monotheistic or like paganistic or whatever, but like any society that's connected with nature will be intensely spiritual. Do you know what I mean? Because everything about the natural world and the outdoors reminds you of your essence and caters towards your essence, right? And so it's like the birds remind, the bricks forget.
SubhanAllah. I think we felt that a lot
Yeah.
yesterday. Like going there, like Ali goes, we were there for hours and we didn't even want to pull out our phone. And it was like that kind of thing. It's like the first thing, you know, when we went to the bathroom and you're talking with Ahmed, he goes, man, it feels good to be in nature. We're there for 10 minutes.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, it's just because maybe like it's been a long time away from it, that instantly you get that feeling back in nature. It's like, yeah, I should be here more often.
Yeah. And even something as
100%.
simple as like, because I know you're there all day,
Yeah.
you're walking around, the sun's hitting you. Like me, I work office job and I'm inside my room.
Mm.
So first thing is you're sitting on
Yeah.
your desk all day,
Yeah.
and then you don't get the steps in. Like you don't get the actual physical benefits,
Yeah.
and then you don't get the sun, the fresh air. There's so many like little benefits that you can get from these habits.
Yeah.
You know, like basketball's mainly indoor sport.
Indoor sport.
Like even
yeah.
that kind of thing. It's like being outside, being in
Right.
nature, being with animals.
Yep.
It's
Like it's 100% true, right? And what I feel, this is something I was thinking as I was driving up here. It's like, do you know Surah Al-Ankabut
Yeah,
about the spider, right? Like what's the main lesson about the spider there,
too sure.
Got
right? Like what do we know about the spider's web?
Maybe. Honestly,
Is
I
that
don't know.
don't know?
Yeah.
That it's the flimsiest of homes. That's all, I think one of the ways it's described in the Quran, right? But if you look at the spider's web, it's intricate and it's beautiful, right? But it's so flimsy, right? So like for a lot of us, like if we look at, I guess, our bricks, right, our financial system and like our work system and whatever, like it works for us because we've built like a construct around it. But it only works as long as that construct exists. Do you know what I mean? As soon as there's like a global financial crisis or a
Or
hazard,
COVID.
right, everything collapses, right? And then where's the real value then? It's actually back to basics, back to like the price of chickens during lockdown. Like a chicken's normally like $20-$30, right? If you want to buy a chicken in lockdown, it's $120, $180.
No.
Yeah, right. Like you know, people are like, oh, let's buy gold, let's buy Bitcoin, let's buy. It's like actual wealth, like when things hit the fan, it's back in the basics, right? It's back with livestock and land and your ability to actually live with and engage the world you're in. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And the cool thing about like the Muslim world, like, you know, when you go to Spain, hopefully you'll see it, is that Muslim cities were actually like very not natural, but like they enmeshed themselves like with the
with
place they
nature.
were, right? So like in Cordoba, like you see the channels, like the water and the wudu areas and the plants, like that was like our city's design was to live with the places that we were. Do you know what I mean?
And I feel like in a lot of the Western countries and the international cities, it's so rare to even see that.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you'll be very surprised to even get a bit of that, and that's where we kind of fall loose a bit with the nature.
That's right. Because we're trying to import something. It's like one of the big problems with the Muslim community, I guess up until now with masjids, was what? It's like we had our Turkish uncles and like our Pakistani uncles and whatever, that they'd come from Pakistan or Bangladesh or like Albania or wherever it is, they come here and they're like, we need to build a community center, but they wanted that community center to be like how it was at home, right? And so we need to build a Turkish mosque, we need to build a Pakistani mosque, we need to build a
whatever
right?
they're comfortable with.
Whatever they were comfortable with. And white people were the same. Like white people, wherever they went, they were just like, we need to build these Gothic churches. When they came to Australia, oh, we need the rabbits and the foxes and the sheep, right? And like, do you know what I mean? Rather than, but like a person that's connected with nature goes to a place and they're like, okay, how does this place work? And how can I fit myself within this structure, right? And one of the cool things, again, like, I guess being with the horses, what you feel, especially as your first time, you feel like intensely inadequate. Like, this thing could kill me.
Yeah. I felt that even with the camel, like being near it,
Yeah.
it was like the friendliest camel I went to. I just felt like a bit vulnerable.
That's
in a way,
right.
Because I'm not too familiar with the camel. I just don't know what its next move.
No,
And the
100%.
trust is
Right?
in there, obviously, because I'm not familiar.
100%.
Very interesting.
And you're like, yeah, it could bite my head off. It could,
Yeah.
it could kick me. I'll be dead. There's nothing I can do in this
Alhamdulillah.
situation, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why the birds remind, because when we're in nature, we're forced to be humble. When we create our spider webs, we think we're the kings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Fir'aun, like when Musa went to Fir'aun and was like, what's it called? Like, like worship Allah who brings life and brings death. Fir'aun says, well, I bring life and death, bring me two people, you live, you die, right? So he created this construct, and the only reason it worked was because he was operating within his construct, right? Like so many of us, like we operate within, I guess, our bubbles, and like, we think we're good.
All this pride is developed, yeah.
Yeah, and like the moment you need to like get stuck in mud or like, do you know what I mean? You're like, subhanAllah,
Yeah,
like,
well, you're kind of useless in a way. I don't want to
You
use that
can't-
term, but
yeah.
you do feel like that.
no,
Yeah.
it's 100% true, right? But then the beauty in that, what's the beauty in that is you realize human beings are distinguished not by our mind or our bodies, right? We're distinguished by our souls. What makes you different to the camel is your ruh, is your soul, is your essence. What makes you different to the horse or like an AI system is your soul. Like we are known by our soul, right? And then it's like, all right, how much attention and intention, like in our lives, do we pay to then catering towards what's good for the soul?
I was just going to say, one of the things I recognize even with just being on the archery ascension for the first time was that compared to other sports as well, it caters for like both genders. And for the Muslim community, it's obviously very healthy to be active, and you need the physical benefits in your life, and certain sports doesn't really cater for both genders in a way. So I kind of saw that a bit briefly, but then I want you to just talk about like how it benefits both, the blessings in it.
Well, the thing is, it's like I haven't paid too much attention to that. Like I think maybe it's like if we talk to a sister about it, like they can talk. But for me, it's like humans. Like this whole it's about who we are as human beings, right? And like were your brother, sister, young, old, that you're a human being, and like in doing these things, like you find that benefit. You know what I mean? And in our history, we have Nusayba radiallahu anha, right? Who like fought along the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the battle of Uhud, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, like in Uhud, when the people were like, when the Quraysh were like coming closer, when I looked left and right, I saw Nusayba with her sword or with her bow, like wherever I looked, she was there fighting, protecting me, right? To the point, like after he passed away, and Umar radiallahu anhu was the Khalifa, he got married and someone gifted him a shawl to give his wife, and he said, go find Nusayba and give this shawl to her, because when like during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he said that when I looked left and right, I saw her fighting beside me. Do you know what I mean? Then we have, I think, Khawla radiallahu anha, right? In the time of Khalid bin Walid, there was like Romans or someone coming, and they saw a person upon a horse wearing a turban and like fully cloaked, was like in the midst of the battle, like leading the charge, like just taking on 4 or 5 people at a time, right? And the army, like the Muslims that were there, they thought that was Khalid bin Walid, so they started rallying behind this person, right? And then Khalid bin Walid comes, and they're like, "Huh? Who's that? Yeah?" And then Khalid bin Walid calls the person over and says, like, "Who are like, you know what I mean? Right? Like, what's going on?" And then she says like like I'm not. He's like take off your veil, and he's like I'm not. She's like I'm not going to take it off out of modesty, but this is who I am. Right? And then we have during like the Battle of the Trench, right, when like I think it's Safiya radiallahu anha, right, they say that she was a one woman army, right? And so I think there was like a Jewish man or Qurayshi that jumps over the trench, right, and is about to break into the stronghold where the women and children are hiding and some of the men that aren't fighting. And there's a brother there that's like, they're like, defend us, and he's scared. He's a poet, he's not a warrior, right? And then he's like, I can't do it. So then she hides, and when like the enemy breaks in, she sneaks up behind him, assassinates him, and throws his body over the fence. So it's like that was a caliber of women, right? But the thing is, it's like, if you think about it, like you know, like in the SWAT team, they have a saying: you never rise to the occasion, you sink to your level of preparation, right? So it's like our women were active as well, right? And in a healthy community, right, like they feel welcome. And if you look, like you were just talking about Preston Mosque, right, the women's side, the sisters, like they're going head on 5 days a week, like they're doing something. Like the more engaged our sisters and our mothers are in a community, the healthier that community is, because they're really the pillars. Do you know what I mean? Like they're the pillars in the hearts, and I guess like we're more like the shepherds and the gardeners. Like we work hard to create that environment where people can come and flourish.
SubhanAllah. It's a good psychology to have, because sometimes we, maybe as the guys or what we hear, we're a bit restrictive on them, and then we don't, because we don't think about the Sunnah sports as an option for our sisters and stuff. We can only encourage like footy or soccer or basketball, and sometimes it's not the sports that your sisters are interested in. So it's good to have that as an option. I wanted to touch on now, because you just said shepherds, and you pushed on the idea that all the prophets were shepherds.
Yeah.
Why isn't is it encouraged maybe as horsemanship? Because obviously you said horsemanship, Sunnah sport, maybe because it's more of a sport. But then I've never really heard people say push to becoming a shepherd.
Yeah.
So maybe like that differentiation between taking care of a horse, taking care of a shepherd, while maybe one's more encouraged.
It's really interesting, yeah, because like see at Archery Ascension, one of the things that we've tried to do is we've tried to have, I guess, cover all the animals.
Yeah.
Right, as in that I mentioned. So we have the camels, we have the horses, we have the sheep. But what you see by working with different animals is they have different natures, right? And sheep, like I think, like also have very different qualities. So learning leadership or learning stewardship from every animal will teach you different things. Do you know what I mean? And I think like in the, like if you really want to understand how like big groups work or en masse works, like masses work, like you'd be working with sheep, right? Not saying that people are sheep, but like you really see like sheep really have a group think type mentality to them, right? But you also have to be very gentle with them, right? So then like to inculcate gentleness within you, like is really important. Like working with horses and camels, there's less gentleness than involved with sheep. So that'll really bring out more of a fire in you. Do you know what I mean? And like some people need to be softened. Some people need to be like that fire needs to be brought out, right? And then in that we find the balance, right? So yeah.
SubhanAllah.
It's man management.
Yeah. It is beautiful. And even like a big thing is, because you said the rat race, and it's making me think about my entire job.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because I'm sitting in my room all day. And we just switched today to full-time working from home. So no more going to the city and stuff. So obviously it helps with being able to do this, right after work and stuff like that. But it's like the desire to be there out in nature and stuff like that. I want to hear, because for example, we have our, say, hobby, side hustle, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of other people have similar things. And you started archery 2012. When did you get a horse? 2018, you said?
2018, yeah.
So it's been a couple of years, but how'd you turn hobbies into like a business and a community? Maybe even like a business, because obviously maybe your occupational therapy side helped with that, with the that can be a source of income. And then the community that came after that.
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know is the short answer, or probably the honest answer, because even like from a business point of view, like I don't have a business background, and I didn't study business. Like I studied people, right? And my job has been how to help people, right? And then like, I guess in being able to help people, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So my greatest challenge, as like a therapist or as a clinician or whatever, was like how do I maintain my cup, so that I can help other people, right? And then I guess Archery Ascension came about because then it's like, okay, like this benefit can't just be contained here, like this is who we are as people, right? But we don't know that. Like, we don't know how amazing we can be,
True.
right? So then how do we like take this out to the world, right? And then it was just like, okay, let's like share these ideas with a small group of people, and then it sort of grew from there, right? But like the best community is a community, or the best organization is an organization where there's people from diverse backgrounds with a singular purpose, right? Diversity of backgrounds, singularity of purpose, right? And I think that's what the ummah is. Do you know what I mean? That's what it found. So it's like first and foremost, it's like myself needs to be that. Like, you know, I have my limbs, my mind, all facets of me should be working towards one thing. Then my family should be that. Then the people around me, and then the community, and then so does that make sense? Yeah. In terms of like business, so right now where I'm at, it's like if you ask me like how I'm going, I'd say that from a life point of view, I'm like really like sakina, like it's like there's a sense of peace, there's a sense of focus, because everything like all guns, like all systems are like focused on this one thing, and this one thing is also ikigai. It's like passion, profession, purpose. I'm not like deen, dunya, do you know what I mean? Family, work, right? It's like it's all blended, right? But then it's like business and like, okay, 3-year plan, 5-year plan, corporate, I have no idea, and I'm that's what I'm learning now.
Yeah.
Right. And you probably have to ask me that later on, because it's like still early days.
Yeah.
But in terms of myself, like what I believe, like if you have I guess like my personal conviction, like what I draw upon, like say if I have like muses or musings, like one thing is, I guess there's a few, but one thing is that Mount Rushmore. I think about that a lot. Do you know what I mean? The second thing I think about is that identity question, right? Like for my girls growing up, it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like,
them to like align with
who do I want them to and like who do I want them to be, and like, you know what I mean, who are their superheroes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then for myself, in terms of conviction, it's like that trust in the process, and that if Allah and the Prophet ﷺ says something's good, it's like you can close your eyes and like jump in and see where it takes you, right? That's where it is. And then like really like I know like some people are more like, okay, let me plan this out, I'm more like jump in feet first and then just figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So even like with the horse, like it wasn't like I researched how much does it cost to care and break it down. No, I was like, okay, like that's a hadith on horses.
That's enough.
That's enough. I bought a horse. Like now, and I learned so much. So now, if I was going to buy a horse, I could tell you, okay, check the hooves, movement, temperament, look at the eyes, look at the
on the way.
Yeah, like I've learned, and like, you know, so I've been kicked, bitten, fallen off, whatever, all those things that you're worried about.
You went through it, yeah.
But now I can I've tasted it, right? It's like, so knowledge is like you read it, or you hear it, like you take from someone else, or you experience it, right? So it's like, there's been, and that's how I've learned. I guess it's costed a bit, but it's like,
the thing is,
it's good.
It makes you remember it more when you kind of go through the mistakes. It's like they say, start, then learn, then learn, then start. Because if you keep learning, you go through like analysis paralysis. We keep analyzing. Like, for example, you want to start running. People say, I want to make sure I get the right shoes. Start analyzing for weeks the right shoes. Okay, I need the right clothes, and I need the right this and the right. It's like sometimes you just got to start.
No, 100%.
And then kind of do it. And we hear oftentimes like people with podcasts, people on YouTube that start businesses, they say everyone's winging it. Like literally, it's like 100%. My parents, when I talk about their business, no one's given them a, you know, like
there's
this is the recipe to kind of be successful. It's like you kind of just keep winging it, and that's how you grow and develop those kind of skills.
100%. And I guess that's also then, I guess, relationships and marriage and whatever. It's like you can't really map it out. Like there's no blueprint, right? Like the advice that my dad gave me, he's like, if somebody meets like, I guess like say if you got a criteria, it's like if somebody meets 70% of that, that's good. That's really good. Like you can marry that person, and because the 30% you can work on, like you'll figure out, they'll figure out.
Yeah.
There's only things you figure out afterwards.
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
possible to figure out
That's
in the
right.
moment.
But I guess there's good practices. I think as well, it's also like when it comes to, I guess, business model or those kind of things. I think one of the things that I did was because I don't know, I asked people who know, like who knew, right? It's really interesting, like as I'm saying this, because like I heard like a talk recently where someone saying the Quran has an answer for everything, and then someone like an atheist or someone goes to the person and is like, all right, the Quran has an answer for everything. How much how much flour should I use to make this amount of bread, right? Like, does your Quran answer that question? He's like, yeah, it does, right? And he's like, all right, then answer it for me. He's like, let me go get a baker. Then he gets a baker, comes back, and he asks him the question. The baker says, 2 bags, right? And then the atheist says, well, you asked the baker. He's like, yeah, but what does it say in the Quran? If you don't know, ask those who know.
SubhanAllah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like I guess in my journey, a lot of it was, all right, like there are brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles in the community that are successful business people, run successful NGOs, community organizations. So it's like a lot of my time was asking them. It's like, like there's a company called Hub Shifa. They sell black seed oil. So like I reached out to them because like that brother, like the CEO of that company, like he probably put my heart at ease the most because he comes from a business background and whatnot. And he's like, look, Omar, the thing that worked for me was, it was like, I made my intention, I wanted to revive a Sunnah.
SubhanAllah.
Right? And then I just saw barakah come through like the business. Do you know what I mean? So he's like keep your intentions pure, and then we'll have like, I guess, conversations around like, how we set up his structures and that kind of thing. Or like another group of people that have been really helpful is Sister Mariam Chowdhury from Islamic Museum. I don't know if she's still there, but Islamic Museum Australia. And it's like, okay, like, how did you go about like leveraging NGOs and, volunteer teams and that kind of thing? Because Archery Ascension, a lot of it's volunteer driven. It's very community driven. So the way that it works right now is that Archery Ascension is not for profit, community driven. And then like, it's sort of like we're trying to get it to a point where it's sustainable and like we can make that a reality. And then the way that I'm right now, because like I quit my job, so the way that I'm right now, like trying to make ends meet is through the NDIS therapy with the animals. Okay. And so we're building like, so now like I'm at a point trying to build up both like almost 2 organizations.
But they're at the same location?
At the same location.
So full time you're pretty much at where we went?
Yeah.
Okay. How, could you take us through like a day to day? Like, I know every day's
different.
Okay, how about, today you already told us?
Yeah.
How about like a weekend? Take us through like on Saturday, because we saw you Sunday, and we know you had classes in the morning.
There's never a dull moment, man. There's never a dull.
There's something new, yeah.
There's always some action, and that's the beauty about being in nature. It's like actually, like in nature there is order, like there is a sense of like, the sun orbits the earth, the earth orbits the sun, and the moon orbits the earth, and the sun orbits like another star, and like everything's in perfect balance and perfect order. But there's like, it's not like a rigidity. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Right. So like no 2 days are the same, man. But like the mornings will be like, it'll be like go out there, check the animals, water, feed, that kind of thing. Now like part of like the members, like we built a roster, and like one of the sisters manages that. So it's like by being a member, then you get to learn to care for the animals and bring your kids. And so like there's a couple that's like they come 2-3 times a week now to look after the animals, and like they were like, this saved our marriage, like because like coming to lockdown, like you're stuck together, and it's like you had to do something productive. And do you know what I mean? Maybe not say like it made their marriage better. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and then on Saturdays we have kids come, that kind of thing. During the week right now is a little bit quiet, like admin time, or like 1 or 2 kids come for therapy. On Saturday we have young kids come in the morning, and then in the afternoon, like once a week we try, like we have 2 suhbah sessions during the week. So suhbah companionship sessions. One's like with sisters only. So I think that's like a Wednesday morning where it's just sisters, like they bring food to share, they do archery, they play with the horses, it's just sisters only space, right? Like they might like do competitions together, and like we have foam arrows, shoot each other, that kind of thing. Obstacle course, like just whatever, just suhbah, right, that space. Then we have one for brothers. Then Sunday mornings, like the whole community. Then we have the classes. Recently we've started going into Islamic schools, and Islamic schools have been coming to us. So now we're developing like, I guess, models that we can like present to schools like, we can do this to you, like
Yeah.
for your kids, or bring your kids to us, that kind of thing. And like back end wise, like I guess like with the therapy stuff, I really want to solidify like a really good model, like a therapeutic model, and also I guess like leadership wise, like create a really good leadership model. Like yeah, inshallah.
So how does it work with the schools, like when you go there? Because I'm trying to think about how you even
Takes
run
all the
that.
horses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Like I don't know. Like on my Instagram page, like I put up a picture. Like when this went to school last week. It's like my horse in the middle of a basketball court.
Wow.
It was like
She loves.
the past, the past and the present.
Mashallah.
No, I had what did I caption it? There was a Kobe Bryant ad with it was like, are you the same beast yet a different animal? Do you remember that?
Oh, I can't
No?
remember.
The
which
ESPN
one.
ones?
It was the
Before
old
that.
ESPN ones, yeah. So
And you
that's what I
captioned that. That's gold.
that's what I
That's
captioned. It's
good.
like, alhamdulillah. Now we take them like we'll message the schools beforehand. We'll get pictures and stuff and we'll say, okay, we need a safe spot to shoot that no one's coming behind. Place for the horses where there's water. And then we had I bought a horse float from Gumtree, and somebody gifted us a trailer. So it's like then some of the volunteers let us use their cars, so we'll tow them up to the schools. Sometimes I used coming to this side's a bit epic. Like last week we were in Caroline Springs, AIA.
That's far for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we left. We left at 5:36 a.m.
Mashallah.
and got there at 9. Then we did a program for the kids.
Inshallah.
But like it was awesome. Like I guess seeing the kids light up.
So rewarding.
It's awesome, man. Right? When I was in when I was in school, there's something called the Kwong Li Dao
Yeah.
Young Scholar thing, right? And then if you get accepted into that program, you get to do like 1 unit of like a uni subject while you're in year 12 or year 11, and that goes towards your VCE. So I did that for a term, and then what happened was I picked law. And in the first presentation, there was a lawyer who's presenting, like really successful, right? And he had his he owns own private yachts and this and that in Melbourne. But then he was saying how he quit, not Muslim, he quit all of that and he started up a social enterprise type of thing. And then for him, the summary of his story was that his success is not measured by the amount of money in your bank account. If success is measured by the amount of smiles your existence puts on the people around you. Right? So by the impact, right? So I guess when it comes back to business plan, to be honest, I don't know my numbers. I couldn't give you a profit loss statement of actually I don't, that's not a good thing. That's what I need to learn.
Yeah.
Right? But I know we have something that will and is and can have a profound impact on the community. Do you know what I mean? And I guess I see my job now as how do I nurture this to be the best version of what it can be? Do you know what I mean? What does that look like? I don't really know, right? But what would be really cool is that where there's a Muslim community, there's a place where this kind of thing's happening. And it doesn't need to be an Archery Ascension franchise. It's just say there's a mosque getting built. The cool thing about Archery Ascension is we're next to a masjid, right?
Yeah.
We're next to Halal Masjid. So imagine if there's a mosque being built in Gippsland. With Bendigo, there's all this don't build the mosque, right? But and you were saying before, there are people that aren't Muslim coming and experiencing and falling in love with what we do and who we are, right? So when they hear there's a mosque being built in Sale or in Malakuta or wherever, Queensland somewhere, right? It's we want those people to be yes, please build the mosque. Because with the mosque is going to come a therapeutic garden.
Yeah.
With the mosque is going to come archery. With the mosque is going to come horses in this community. And it's going to be good for my kids and, right? And it's this is who Muslims are. Oh, wow. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
A lot of what I even realized with that, because what we're starting to realize, some communities, not all, is that they're focusing more than just the mosque itself, more than just the prayer section.
That's
It's
right.
you got to actually somehow bring the community together, bring the youth, making it a place where they're coming more often than usual.
That's
this
right.
is their place to be instead of the wrong areas. And I just feel this is what I'm starting to see when I went the other day to your place.
Yeah.
It just seems beautiful. The mosque is right there, and then you got the activities. There's always something going on. You can help out, volunteer.
That's right. There's always something going on, but there's also a sense of like you can just sit out and chill.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
It's like
it's very inviting, very open.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you come after Fajr, like when the mist is rising and stuff,
that'll be beautiful.
it's magical. That Sunday actually was a magical after Fajr time. And it's really, really cool because...
That was a hint that we missed out.
Yeah, someone said they're sick.
But what was really epic that morning is that the first people that were there was like, because I was a bit late because I went to pick up some sujuk and eggs. And so I got there at 8, but there was three sisters. There's 5 people there at 7 a.m. All of them had come from Faulkner.
No.
Yeah. And like they were just shooting in the mist, and like it was amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And like the more you put yourself in those situations, it's just the more it's like the easier it is for you to step into your essence, right? Coming back to basketball reference, it's like Coach Carter, what does he say? Or what's that famous, he doesn't say it, the famous line, our greatest fear,
Is that
We
we
are
are
not
not inadequate?
Yeah.
that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us, right? One of the stories we say in the schools, the Battle of Badr, right? What happens in the battle? Like, how does Allah describe the day of Badr? As a day of Allah. Right, and how does he describe the two armies? He describes the two armies as it was the day the two great armies met, right? And when he talks about the Muslim army, when he talks about the Quraysh, is like he there's a word used, but it's this army had the perception of weakness. The Muslim army, that was 313 people, right? That they were wearing rags. That was one sword between 3 people. There was one horse in that army. There was maybe 2 or 3 camels, right? But that day, and the Quraysh army, they had their fine weapons, their fine armor, their fine women, their fine food, their fine music. They were ready for war, right? And when Abu Jahl sends a scout, he says, "Scout the Muslims, tell me what you see." The scout gets on his horse and rides around the Muslim camp, comes back to Abu Jahl and says, "There's 300 people, they're wearing rags, they're near the water wells or whatever." And then Abu Jahl says, "So what do you advise?" He says, "I advise we turn back." Right? And then Abu Jahl gets furious and he goes, like, "Why would you say that?" And then he says, "Because a people who come like that, dressed for war, there's something to them that we cannot see."
Amazing for him to even recognize that.
Subhanallah, right? And then Abu Jahl's like, "No, we're going to drag them up, tie him, take him back to Mecca." Right?
Look
That's
what
a
happened to
ragtag army. And look what happened, right? Who was routed that day, right? And like it wasn't a weak army and a great army. Allah describes the 2 great armies. The greatness of the Quraysh was in their fine weapons, their fine armor, their fine food. The greatness of the Muslims was where?
Iman.
In their hearts, right? And so that's it. Like, what's the difference between that Iman and this Iman? It's exactly the same, right? We just need to nurture it.
What's beautiful about that, I was thinking, like when Ashraf asked you about like business advice and stuff, and obviously there's elements you don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas like we obviously control what we can control, and we leave the rest to Allah. Like I remember speaking to my auntie, she was talking about like when you have the right intentions, like you do things for Allah and you consistently remind yourself, you start to recognize the mindset shift, and also the things that happen to you, instead of things that are happening to you, happening for you. So like Allah is obviously putting things in your life for a reason. So it's not always like a negative thing. Actually, it's not. It's never a negative thing.
It's never negative.
Things are happening for a reason. So that's like beautiful. Where for business, it's like you got to understand everything's happening for a reason.
You can't lose.
Exactly.
A Muslim can't lose. It's amazing. It's like you can't actually lose as a Muslim. Right, and that again we learn from about like what did Khalid bin Walid say when he went to battle? I'm gonna make us all radical now, but what did he say, radiallahu anh? Like really, like when he went to face the Romans, he would say what, like, "I come to you with an army that loves what comes after death as much as you love your music and your wine and your parties." He's like, like either we're gonna beat you and we'll take the land, or you're gonna kill us and we're in paradise.
We don't lose.
Yeah, I heard this. Like this would happen to like an extended family member. She had a miscarriage recently, right? Like a stillborn birth. Like it was at term, but Allah yarhamu, like the baby was stillborn. And when she was in those labors, so she still had to deliver the baby, except the baby is not pushing or kicking because it's dead, right? It's already past, the soul has left, right? And as she's in that pain, like she's crying, why me, why me, why me, right? And her mom's like, don't say that. Like, as Muslims, we shouldn't be saying that, right? But then afterwards, like the reason why she was saying, like her mom found out the reason why she was saying why me was because she's like, what did I do to deserve my baby going to paradise straight away?
Whoa. Through the pain, you think like that, because it's easy when things are going well. When it's like a small issue, like you crack your phone and you go, alhamdulillah, it's $100, but stillborn, like, subhanallah.
Revealed her true colours as well, like her true faith through the hardship.
Right, you see that fire, that iman, right? And like as Muslims, that's what we bring to the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, Allah has placed, like, an Islamic education is educating a human being so that they can bring that into the world. And that's what the world needs. Do you know what I mean? So it's like people would look at the Prophet ﷺ and be like, I'm a Muslim. Like that was the da'wah, right? It's very, like, we live in it. Like, when I was a kid, like young, like just growing up, and versus now, like, one of the things I've noticed politically with Muslims, right, like socio-politically rather, is that, like, when I was a kid, it was like, you're a Muslim and you're different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I felt that.
It's like you know, wear your taqiyya, grow your beard. It's like you're different. Yeah. Now it's like, no, we're exactly the same as you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm a Muslim, but like it doesn't mean much. Like, I still eat my sandwich, and you know, like, oh, I go to the gym, I watch Game of Thrones or whatever it is, right? Like, do you know what I mean? And then it's like, no, what like yes and no. It's like we're the same in the sense like everyone here has this human potential and this human essence, right? And what makes us different is that, like, we're stepping into it. It's like what they say, like, with da'wah, there are people that have, like, heard the call, people that have answered the call, and people that are waiting to hear it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like your life should be a testament to that, right? Because you, like you were created for greatness, and that greatness was to impact, like, you know what I mean? To impact the world around you.
100%. And
right?
The world does need it. I seen a video, I think yesterday, one brother just talking to the camera saying, why are you embarrassed to, like, speak about your religion, speak about Islam with other people? Like, people actually in the world are looking for this, and this is what they need. They're dying for it, and you have it inside you to show you, and yet you're embarrassed. Why is that? And it's just like, it really hit me.
And I feel like sometimes in our community we have a very negative focus. Like, here you're now speaking about how strong people's iman is. It's very different to the time of the companions, when you could see the Prophet, you'd see the miracles, you'd see, like, when they talk about Battle of Badr, there'll be situations where people would, like, pass away and no one touched them, and they knew the angels were there and helping them fight. It's very different to us 1400 years later. But as you can see, there's still strong iman. But if we have this focus that the ummah is wasted, we're lost, nothing's going to make us turn back, nothing's going to happen. But like Omar said, if we make small changes and keep believing that our iman, this is what's important, and keep trying to improve ourselves, you never know what the ummah can become.
That's right. It's like in the drug and alcohol world, talking about that, even in the horsemanship world, right? And here we see a therapy and horsemanship relationship. It's like, what happens to you right now if I said, don't think about a pink basketball?
Probably going to come to my head.
What are you thinking about, right? Well, don't think about it, man. Like, what's happening right now? You're thinking about it more. Now you're thinking about whether the inside lining is pink or is it black. Like, what do the dots feel like? Is the grip good? Is it Spalding? Is it Wilson? Right? Or is it bouncy? Did he pump it? Nah, Ali forgot to pump it. Bro, like, do you know what I mean? It'd be like, the more I say don't think about it, come on, bro, just get out of your mind. It's becoming more and more vivid, right? So, like, from a drug and alcohol point of view, it's not like, you know, if anyone's struggling, it's not, I'm not going to smoke marijuana, I'm not going to drink alcohol, I'm not going to, like, you know, it's like I'm going to run away from that. No, it's about, think about the type of life you want. Right? I want to live more healthily. I want to right? And you're a human being. So then, like, say with the first one, if you're like, oh, I'm not going to smoke, and then you slip up and you have a joint or you have a puff, right? Then it's, oh, I'm an idiot. I did it again. Oh, I can never quit. Yeah. But if your goal is, hey, I want to be more healthy, and like every day you go to the gym and eat healthy, try avoid those friends, and one day you slip up, it's like, oh, well, I slipped up, but you haven't derailed from your goal.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know if you've read it. There's a book called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
James Clear, a popular book and stuff, but he talks about that, the difference between like an action and identity.
Yeah.
Just like, for example, you might have smoked, but you're not a smoker. And that's how it's like, okay, you read, are you a reader?
That's right.
So that's the big difference. Like, okay, you slipped up, you smoked, but are you a smoker? And that's how, like you said, you identify yourself.
Yeah.
So you can kind of look forward.
And by identifying with what you want rather than what you're running away from, like, that's really how you move forward from that, right? And so even as a ummah, if we're going to be like, oh, like as a ummah we suck and the iman's weak and there's so much fitna, and then what are you going to see? You're going to see and you're going to create around you an ummah that sucks, and that's do you know what I mean? And fitna and da-da-da. But if you're like, okay, like no, these people are beautiful, and we're going to dedicate our life to bringing out beauty in people and creating a beautiful environment, then what happens? That's what happens, right?
What you focus on.
Yeah, there was a sheikh, and he says there are three type of people, right? And he says, be like coffee. Yeah, I don't know if I've told you this or if you've heard this before. So he says, you know, it's hot water when there's trouble, right? You have people that are eggs, you have people that are carrots, right? What happens when you put an egg in hot water? It becomes hard. Yes, people harden up, they toughen up, right? During tribulation, not bad. What happens when you put a carrot in hot water?
Softens.
It softens, it crumbles, right? Crumble under pressure. Da-da-da. What happens when you put coffee in hot water?
Blends.
The hot water becomes the coffee.
Interesting.
So be like coffee.
That's
Right, we
Very
find
interesting.
ourselves
Yeah, I like that one.
in fitna, da-da-da. We find ourselves in hot water. Let's change it. How are we going to change it? With the power of iman. And with the coffee bean. What's iman? It's bringing beauty into the world. Do you know what I mean? It's good character, right? In the Quran, whenever Allah mentions like believers and the qualities of the believers, He says has iman and good character, right? So if someone's got iman and doesn't have good character, you can say they have aqidah issues.
SubhanAllah. Yeah. Wallah, I could keep talking to you all day or all night.
We
really
didn't
now.
even do a formal introduction.
But Ahmed's looking at me and I think it's getting a bit late.
A bit
Was there anything you did want to touch on? Because you might have came with your own like perspective. Hey, I really want to ask the boys questions or chat about a certain thing just before we do wrap it up.
Bro, we've talked a lot, man.
Yeah.
We've
If you
talked
don't,
a
then
lot.
you,
Look,
any-
let's just make sure that we catch up. This isn't the first, as in this
Of
isn't the
course.
last.
Yeah.
of course.
Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like amongst us, we've
Maybe we'll bring Archery
scratched the
Ascension podcast
surface.
back. Because I
Yeah?
watched it with
watched
Maidan
a couple
Archery and I watched
episodes?
Bose with the other brother.
Yeah,
I was
Mashallah.
like,
inshallah.
maybe
Good to see.
we'll bring that back.
Maybe you teach us how to do podcasts. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Alhamdulillah.
Right? So I'll come to the people who know. And you've
Okay.
gone through the hard
We'll
yards.
come learn archery and
Done.
Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah.
Well, Jazakallah khairan for coming on. I
Yep.
think it would be good if you kind of tell the people where they can find you, find the
Okay,
organization and stuff like that. So,
Alright, do you want me to look that way?
yeah, go for it.
Or should I look this way?
Anyway.
Anyway,
Either way,
I'll
yeah.
close my eyes. I'll just talk with my eyes. No, alhamdulillah. So Archery Ascension, we're a not-for-profit community organisation in southeast Melbourne. We're just behind Hallam Masjid on Belgrave Hallam Road. You can follow us, I guess, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we do archery and horse riding or horsemanship activities. The idea is to build a community and promote well-being through activity, so doing things that the Prophet ﷺ did. And then on the other side, during the week, we do like therapy programs to kids or young people, in a sensory-based environment, I guess, at the farm. And my background is like a youth mental health OT. So if there are people out there, I guess, that also have questions around mental health, well-being, that kind of thing, you can also like reach out to us, inshallah.
If you want to find them, Facebook, Instagram, Archery Ascension.
Yeah, archery.ascension.
Perfect.
Archery.ascension.
Inshallah. If you ever have any questions, honestly, just send a message. They're fully supportive and 100% you have to go there. You guys will probably see it in the episode. We'll add some of the clips that we went.
Inshallah, yeah.
And
Some of the lessons we've learned.
Jazakallah khairan again. I
Yeah.
hope you guys
Awesome.
enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next week.
Assalamu alaikum.